We are in Kailua, Kona, at Chris Lieto's house. He was very kind to let us stay here. Probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. Beautiful view. Yep. Its own little microbiome up here because it's like 10 degrees, 15 degrees cooler and raining right now, overcast quite a bit. Wonderful. And then you can go down and visit the warm, humid Kona down there.
We haven't heard from you since Dallas, and it seems like we come into a rhythm of we say something, then it happens in a pre-race video. Tell us about the heat in Dallas.
Well, I still stand by what I said that day on the video. On Thursday, had the race occurred on Thursday at 2 p.m., I think I would have done a lot better. I felt really good on Thursday at 2 p.m. when the time approximately was to begin the race. That day when we did that workout, I believe the measured temperature on the little weather vane was like 90 degrees and like 50% humidity. I seemed to be able to tolerate that and didn't overheat. I wore a core sensor even for that session because I was starting to think about those types of ideas with Kona coming up after the race. But yes, I agree. I'm just going to stop talking about the conditions or basically anything because it seems that whenever I say something, it comes back to bite me. And so I said that the heat was not going to be a factor for this race, and of course it warmed up another few degrees and the humidity perhaps increased another few percentage points relative to how hot it was, and it threw me over the edge. And well, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And turned out I was still, even though I live in Tucson, Arizona, and it's quite hot for 4 months out of the year, turned out I was still quite ignorant of several heat concepts, and all of those came to the forefront in that race, and I paid the price with basically easy day in a major race that I had planned to do well on and had semi-focused on.
The swim went pretty much incredible for you. Your deficit was like 230 out of the water compared to the 4 minutes in Edmonton. You came out, and then did you overheat in the swim? Kind of talk us through what happened from there.
I'm not going to say anything anymore with any authority because obviously I have no authority and I know nothing about anything. So I'm not going to say that the beginning of the overheating didn't begin in the swim, because perhaps it did, but I didn't feel like I was overheating in the swim. The water temp I think that day was 84 degrees or so it wasn't too bad. I prefer to swim in 82 to 83 degrees anyway, so I would call it quite pleasant water temp. I don't necessarily think I swam any better than in Edmonton. I just think that the dynamics of the race, I think a lot of guys were worrying about the heat after watching the women's race, and so the front guys just took the race out, I think, a lot easier. And obviously that's gonna work to my advantage. So yeah, when I came out of the water, I came out with Keenlay, who he was admittedly almost a minute ahead of me in Edmonton, but I think he just had bad luck and just didn't make the pack, whereas he did make the pack in Edmonton. And so I came out with Keenlay, Leiferman, Long, and a few other guys, and so I knew I had good firepower around me. Admittedly, I was aware of the limitations in the heat, and so I did adjust down my goals for the race. In Collins Cup, I averaged 333 watts, and so I thought, okay, 320 is a good target. That's 13 watts less than I averaged. It's a bit hotter. Perhaps I was a bit arrogant, or probably more ignorant, because the conditions were like way harder than the Collins Cup. And so I perhaps needed to adjust it down even more. But in my mind, I just was too ignorant to understand or to even think that I would need to be targeting something like 300 watts in a middle distance race. I would never in a million years, if you asked me, oh, Dallas, a major race with a huge prize purse in the top competition, Do you think that you should average 300 watts for an hour and 45 minutes on the bike? And I would never in a million years, prior to learning what I learned in Dallas, answer the question with yes. So I can't really get upset with myself. I went out with long. I looked down at the meter. It was 330 to keep up. I said that's beyond what I intended to push today. He rode away. I went back down to 320. And that was probably the beginning of the end right there, first lap. Yeah, I mean, I won't go into the details too much because I'm already like, my thinking is already way beyond because I'm already back here in Kona amassing data. But that's what happened to me is I think my thresholds came down. I had complete ignorance of that thresholds would come down with heat, and lactate goes up, core temperature goes up, and you have a breaking point. Everyone has a breaking point, and people have different natural breaking points, and I was above mine, and I kept pushing into it because I couldn't accept that 300 watts was actually probably what I needed to push nice and steady in that race. And I believe that pushing into it and into it and into it over and over again put my core, I can't say for certain what the number was. I wish I would have wore a core sensor and a heart rate monitor during the race. Hindsight's 2020. I thought I'd be racing for the win. I didn't know I'd be racing for nearly last place, so I should have just used it to gather data anyhow. But I didn't. But I would estimate that my core was, dangerously high, and my body went into some, not necessarily dangerously high, but it was high, and my body put me into some protective mechanism such that there was no ability to exert anymore. And that was it on the bike. That happened on the bike. And then onto the run, I thought maybe, since I pushed such little power, I averaged 303 watts on the bike. I mean, that's just hard for me to even wrap my head around in a middle distance race. But I averaged 303 watts. And on the run, maybe I was hoping that I would be able to run because I pushed so little power. And nope, continued on to the run, and I averaged, I didn't walk because I know myself well enough now to I'd even like to retract that statement because I've got Kona coming, and I walk that 15 times now. So I don't know myself that well, but I knew enough how to pace it such that I wouldn't have to walk. And so I averaged 357 per kilometer in a middle distance race off of a 1 hour and 47 minute bike and a 2K swim. I never in a million years would have thought. I think my prior worst in a middle distance race for a run off the bike, if I recall, in Racine 2000 maybe 15, I had a really bad run and I had to go to the toilet like 3 times, and I think I ran a 117, which I believe is like 340. Yeah, it's about 340 per kilometer. That was my previous best for 21K with 3 pit stops to the toilet. I averaged 357 in this one. So, yeah, it was tough. It was rough. I don't know if people thought, like, some of my competitors came by me, like, trying to amp me up, thinking, like, I think maybe people thought I was just lollygagging it or something. Amberger in particular came by and he said something like, move the arms and suffer, something like that. Like, it's like, oh, guy, I mean, I know how to suffer. Trust me on that one. I'm very confident in my ability to suffer. I was in some, like, weird protective mechanism such, and I went with them because it kind of pissed me off, if I'm being honest. And I tried to go, and I mean, it was impossible. I was just in some survival state. And I would imagine all my thinking is now begun, and it's painful. It's painful to do a race and go into it thinking, I was in phenomenal shape. Like I'm in some of the best shape in my entire life. I know I'm in good shape because my training partner, who I trained with every single day, Colin Chartier, won the race. So I know that I am in decent shape anyhow. He is just an absolute freak, an animal in those temperatures. It's like it doesn't even exist. It's like I actually think he might be cold. Like he needs to turn the temperature up a little bit so that he warms up. But it's really difficult, You know, when you go to a race and you think you're going to be competitive, and then you have like literally like fighting for last, fighting to not get last. That's a tough one. But I've done it I've done that a million times too here in Kona. So,
Well, you didn't get the race you wanted. Does that mean? I know it's hard to predict, but you're in good shape. Are you going to be able to turn it around for Kona?
oh, total whirlwind of emotions. I mean, I came home to the hotel after the race, and Aaron and I just sat on the step, and I sulked. I don't even say it's sulked. It's just like disbelief. Like what happened? What happened? I don't even know what happened. And then I just started to, you know, fortunately, McCall and Colin both, you know, had seen me training for quite a while, and they were both able to kind of pick me up, because I pretty well was not coming to Kona after that one. Like, Kona's hot, and I've had that experience here in basically every time, 15, 16, 17, like I didn't have a horrible blow up, but I still did horribly blow up, and I just was in the lead, so I pushed myself really far. 18, 19, all bad. All my hot races, all my worst performances all occur in the heat. And so that one like really put the nail in the coffin for me, in that it was like, you suck in the heat. Like, it's not even up for debate now. Like, you are really bad in the heat. And so, yeah, it was just a whirlwind of emotion. And then I started to just say, like, there's got to be something there. There has to be something there. It just doesn't make sense how 1 month prior you can go toe-to-toe with Sam Long, and then 1 month later he's getting third, he's leading the race, and you're fighting for last. Like, there's got to be something there. And so I just wouldn't take no for an answer, and so here I am in Kona now, not taking no for an answer. Now I'm rambling, but long story short, that inspired me and invigorated me to learn more and to understand myself and what's going on better under the hood in hot conditions. And that inspired me to say, let's go to Kona then, whatever to the performance, whatever to the outcome. Go to Kona, do a 9-day data analysis camp in the conditions, in the heat, understand what's going on under the hood. Now I'm starting to understand what the right questions are to be asking. Understand where your heat tolerance threshold currently lies. Understand how the temperature is actually bringing your thresholds down. So to create 2.5 millimole actually requires you to slow down as it's heating up. Understand that deeply. And then use all that data, and then go out and do Kona and prove to yourself, to me, that you can at least race the race. Even if you have to do an ITT totally solo, within yourself, within your zones, prove that you can race that race and not race it for 6 hours and survive for 2 hours. Yeah, it's going to be, I'm really excited. I'm learning a lot. I'm learning quickly. I do think that this, well, I'm not for certain, but even from being here and understanding these concepts already, I feel that this is something that certainly is trainable to an extent. People have natural set points at everything. I obviously, for whatever reason, have a relatively low natural set point for heat tolerance. But yeah, we're gonna do some videos here in Kona, and we're just gonna, really, we did that series back in 2020, I believe. I just didn't know the questions to ask. Now I know, I have a much better understanding of what the questions are we need to ask and what we need to understand in order to perform to the best of my ability here or in any hot race, for instance. And so we're going to spend 9 days, a 9-day camp here, amassing that data and amassing a case study on how to perform well in these conditions. And then we're going to put it to the test in the race.